this over anyway.
Okay.
They're talking about confirmations and what they are. And then they ask, what are the two balance-related audit objectives? What are the two balance-related audit objectives? Two balance-related, remember, not transaction-related, balance-related audit objectives for which confirmation of accounts receivable, provide primary evidence. For which confirmation of accounts receivable balances provide primary evidence. Select one of the options and explain. Select one of the options and explain. Okay, these are the options. Option A, completeness and valuation. Completeness and valuation. B, valuation and rights and obligations. Valuation and rights and obligations. C, rights and obligations and existence. Rights and obligations and existence. And answer D, existence and completeness. Existence and completeness. Now, I'm going to be, if you have a strong argument for your choice, I may be a little more flexible on this, because they gave an answer and it's fine, but I'll be flexible, but you got to give me a sentence or two about why the option you choose is the good one. Now, I threw out the entire next question, question 5, and added my own from Bill's old exams. Problem 5, 30 points. Okay, possibility 1. Three parts. It gives, this is from chapter 24, this one. It gives a paragraph description about subsequent events. Then there's 3 questions. This is possibility 1. This is Bill's. Part A, briefly explain what is meant by the phrase, subsequent event or subsequent period event. That's defined in chapter 24. So they call it subsequent event. I call it subsequent period event. Part B, I want you to basically differentiate subsequent events that require financial statement adjustment, from those that require financial statement disclosure. Remember, this is starting on page 764, 765, 766, and 767. So differentiate between those subsequent events that require financial statement adjustment versus those that require financial statement disclosure. That was kind of like the Tracy Brewing problem we did today. And part C, what procedures could you perform to basically discover subsequent events? And those are on page 766 and 767. 766 and 767.
What was the question again?
Audit procedures to detect subsequent events.
What procedures can you perform
to ascertain the occurrence of subsequent events? That's the official language. In other words, I said discover subsequent events. Now, when I gave that question on the old final, it was closed book and notes. So you had to memorize it. You guys got it right there. Second possibility, problem 5. This was a CPA question from the 90s. They basically give you a bunch of facts and they want you to list audit procedures. These are audit procedures when there's notes payable. A company borrowed money from a bank and they want you to list audit procedures for the note payable area. Notes payable. Now they added, oh, I took out the other part, good. There was another part in here that I always disliked and I took it out. So remember last week on Saturday we talked about audit procedures for notes payable? That's what I'm looking for. You don't need objectives, I want procedures. Like give a standard bank confirmation to confirm the, the terms of the note, that stuff. And the third possibility for problem 5, one of Bill's again, list audit procedures and any documents and records, but audit procedures I'm really looking for. When an auditor is assuring that payroll is fairly presented, when an auditor is assuring that payroll is fairly presented, and one of the objectives is to detect fraud. So basically I'm looking for audit procedures, not objectives. Audit procedures in the payroll area. In the payroll area. Especially dealing with accurate payroll amounts, ghost employees. One of your audit procedures to keep Bill happy should be perform the surprise payroll payoff. But give me a number of audit procedures, not just one or two, in the payroll area.
Surprise payroll payoff.
Yeah, remember that one I was always stressing? Okay, are we ready for the last question? This is theirs again. See, I like mine so much more. They had a question in there that was really hard. Question 6, 3 possibilities. Possibility 1. What are at least, that they talk about how you completed the testing of all the accounts. We're at the end of the audit. What are at least 5 other procedures or reviews? What are at least 5 other procedures or reviews that must be performed? In other words, 5 procedures or reviews that must be performed prior to issuing your audit report. Prior to issuing your audit report. These are all in chapter 24. Remember, like one of them I'll give you, obtain a management representation letter from management. But they're all at the end of the chapter. So chapter 24, they just want you to list at least 5 procedures or reviews that would occur at the year end. Another one, remember, was evaluate the going concern concept. There's another one. I'm giving too many away.
Prior to issuing
the audit report.
So, but it's year end, right?
It's year end. We're done with the audit. The field work is done. What are some 5 of the last steps we would need to perform before we can officially sign off on the audit and issue the report? Like obtaining a management representation letter from management, evaluating the going concern concept, performing our final analytical procedures, reviewing for subsequent period events. It goes on and on. So that looks kind of nice, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Next possibility. For which of the following should an auditor obtain written management representations? For which of the following should an auditor obtain written management representations? I guess what that means is which of the following you should make sure that that management includes in the representation letter and explain why. Without an explanation, you're not going to get all the points, so please give me some explanation, please. Four possibilities.
It's not registered. Can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry. For which of the following should auditors
obtain written management representation? Written management representation. which kind of means to me either in a separate memo from management or in the management representation letter, one of these four should be included. Why? Or why not the others? Four possibilities. We're almost there. Geez, honest. There's only one after this. I know, it's overwhelming. Answer A, management's cost-benefit justification. Management's cost-benefit justification for correcting internal control weaknesses. Management's cost-benefit justifications for correcting internal control weaknesses. That's choice A. Choice B, management's knowledge of future plans. Management's knowledge of future plans that may affect the price of the entity's stock. Management's knowledge of future plans that may affect the price of the entity, that means the client's stock. Now, all these are important, but look at the management representation letter discussion in this particular chapter. Some of these would not be part of the management representation letter, and some of these would be. That's what this problem is getting at. I mean, every one of these is significant.
What chapter? 24?
24. This is all chapter 24. I'm trying to find the part again that dealt with the management representation letter. That was on 768, 769, and 770, and 771. Okay, parts, I did A and B. I'm ready for C.
Mm-hmm.
C, management's knowledge of allegations of fraud. Management's knowledge of allegations of fraud or suspected fraud affecting the entity. Management's knowledge of allegations of fraud or suspected fraud affecting the entity. And D, are you ready for D?
Mm-hmm.
Management's acknowledgement of its responsibilities. Management's acknowledgement of its responsibilities for employees' violation of the laws. Management acknowledgement of its responsibilities for employees' violation of the laws. Now, all of those are important, but for the management representation letter is what I'm reading that, one of those would be more appropriate than the others. And finally, possibility 3, problem 6, 30 points. Okay, we're talking about the management's written representations again. I assume that's referring to the management representation letter. An auditor should understand that such representations, and then there's the 4 choices. In other words, the management's representations in the management representation letters, the auditor should recognize that those representations answer A through D, which is best and why. Possibility A, constitutes sufficient evidence to support the assertion, when considered in combination with a sufficiently low, Bill, you'll have to repeat this one, I will. When considered in combination with a sufficiently low assessed level of control risk when considered in combination with a sufficiently low assessed level of control risk. So these representations for A would constitute sufficient evidence to support the assertion when considered in combination with a low level of control risk. Choice B would complement but not replace. Would complement but not replace substantive tests designed to support the assertion. Would complement but not replace subsequent tests designed to support the assertion. Choice C are not part of the evidence considered to support the assertion. Are not part of the evidence considered to support the assertion. They refer to chapter 24, by the way, AU 333, AU 333. And choice D, replace, they would replace a low assessed risk, a low assessed level. They would replace a low assessed level of control risk. They would replace a low assessed level of control risk as evidence to support the assertion. Replace a low level of control risk as evidence to support the assertion.
And what page was that again? I'm sorry.
It looks like 768 through 771.
Oh, okay, so it's all chapter.
Is that, well, it's that part of chapter 24.
What was 3.3? You gave us a 3.
Yeah, they refer to, and let me explain that. In this model answer, they referred to AU 333. AU 333. I'm not as familiar with that. I know like that SAS we talked about. AU 333 states that management's representations are blank and do not blank for procedures necessary to blank, so they blank audit procedures. So, I'm going to see if I can just see, because that's the end of this. Let me just see if I can see something quickly on that. Okay. Well, I see one sentence in here. A client representation letter is a written statement from a non-independent source and therefore cannot be regarded as reliable evidence. So they refer to that. You may find other evidence here. So that was on page 769. That knocks one of the answers out automatically.
So a client representation letter is not reliable, huh?
Well, that's part of it. Or it certainly can't replace something, but could it do something else?
This is the last question.
Yes, so it certainly can't replace. It's not sufficient in and of itself. Could it complement, for example? Does that help out?
Yeah.
Well, it's not an easy exam. It's not an easy exam, and Bill realizes it, trust me. I know, Lena, you were planning on doing it tomorrow. I don't think there's enough time. You can't do it that soon.
I have to do it Thursday because I have open house on Wednesday.
I was going to say, this is going to take a while to prepare for, too. I mean, this is not one you can do overnight.
Well, so you could give us like an extra day?
Now, Thursday, I've got to get it by Thursday night. It used to be Wednesday, but I'm doing it to Thursday.
You know, they usually leave it open until Sunday. This is something different.
Well, no. For years, the final was closed on Wednesday for on-site classes and Thursday for online. Then they extended it till Saturday, but then they found out that grades couldn't get in. So some faculty may let it in on Saturday if they have very minor final. But I'm going to the old online days on Thursday night. We do have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but it's, some of you have more than one class. And it's gonna take a while to start, go through this. But if you can get through some of it in advance, once you get online, it should be okay.
There, I can't.
I mean, the good thing with the book, you could just like search for words.
That helps too, yes.
Yeah, that's what
Yes.
I do.
If I don't know it by now, I don't, because I have to work, and then I'm gonna take the auditing one tonight after I get home.
Oh, you're kidding.
And then I'm gonna go to work, and then I'm gonna take, after work, I'm gonna take the business law one. And then Wednesday I'm gonna go to work and then do open house, and then Thursday I'm gonna go to work and do this.
Isn't the business law one the easiest one?
I hope so.
I would do that one.
I
I don't know,
think that-
Letitia and I are not ready to take the exam tonight. I don't think we're ready.
I think,
So it's due Thursday?
Thursday night, please.
I think business